Hi, my name is Thomas Hasselberger, and I'm here today to talk to you about woodwind doubling. Now, woodwind doubling is something that most woodwind musicians have to do at some point in their career. There are some musicians that, I'll say an oboe player or an oboist will spend the entirety of their life playing the oboe and eventually work up to a symphonic orchestra. However, a lot of other woodwind musicians end up playing multiple woodwinds, if not all of them. So I'm here today to talk to you about some basic principles before going to your first gig as a doubler. Now, step zero before anything else, like all things in music, you have to practice. This is completely new to you. You're basically starting from square one in terms of actually playing. Maybe the theory you still have, and that can be applied, and that does help people learn instruments faster, but practicing is the best way to get used to a new embouchure, new technique, and getting used to every aspect of the instrument. So practicing is absolutely crucial and comes before anything else I talk about today. Now, diving into gear. Before we get into any of the woodwind specific stuff, we're going to talk about gear that everybody needs to have when they show up on a gig. First thing, and the most important, pencil. You have to have a pencil to write in any changes that the director wants. You can write in your own changes, notes to yourself, accidentals, everything like that. Everyone at every music performance should have a pencil on them, or any rehearsal. The next thing I'm going to mention is electronics. Now, I have an iPad that I use for gigs, and I use the app Fourscore to download the PDFs of my music, and on Fourscore you can flip the pages just like you were reading from an actual book. If you're going to do that, you have to have a charger. Now, this is the basic charger that comes with most Apple products, I believe, and this works fine. The only thing is that it's not very long. You might want to consider purchasing a 10-foot cable. This is a 10-foot charger from Anchor. Now, this cable could be very useful. You don't need a power source directly next to your iPad. You can now just plug this in and still have your iPad on your stand and not have to have it charging and then use it. You can do both at the same time, right? Now, the thing that's been holding everything up, and probably one of the most important things, is the music stand. The thing to know with stands is whether or not you need one. You will get gigs that are places that don't have stands, such as libraries or possibly restaurants, especially will never have stands most likely unless they regularly have musicians in. But having a good stand, and especially a good portable stand that's sturdy and can hold everything and do the job, is very crucial and is invaluable as a musician. Now, getting into the woodwind specific equipment, we have neck straps. If you have to change the length, let's say you're playing soprano sax, which is very small, so your neck strap would be very tight, versus baritone sax, where your neck strap is all the way out. You can just move up and down, like I just did there, but consider if you have any fast changes, having an extra step in there while you're trying to make that change could be very difficult to deal with. It could really trip you up, especially during performance. So you can consider using two neck straps. Now, I have my regular alto sax neck strap on. This is the Rico strap, and I have the Van Doren one I use for tenor and baritone. And using two neck straps just gives you a little bit more versatility and makes changing just that little bit easier. You don't have to adjust your neck strap in the middle of a show. Extra reeds. I have my assortment of bass clarinet reeds with me right now, and you have to have extra reeds with you. Now, you can use just boxes like this, or you can carry a bunch of reeds around in your reed case that are ready to go and are in circulation. Whatever you choose to do, you have to have extra reeds. If you drop your horn or it slips in your hand or something happens to that reed where it's broken, it needs to be replaced, you have to be ready for it. The next two pieces of equipment I'm going to talk about are woodwind specific and can be used to fix the horn itself. We have Yamaha powder paper, which basically you can put in between the pad and the tone hole and pull out to get any moisture out from between the keys. And I also have woodwind screwdrivers. These screwdrivers I picked up from a dollar store for about $1, and they're meant to fix any loose rods or screws that may come out during a performance. Ideally, before the performance, you don't have any sticky keys and you don't have any rods that are loose, but hey, things happen. So it's really important to have these basic tools to, make sure that the gig goes smoothly and can fix any problem you may have. This is a stand desk. This one specifically has a cup holder, and basically you can screw it onto the stand, right? There's the mechanism. The pole goes in here, and it will hold on to the stand, and you can put a water bottle, your reeds, your tools, all here. Here, I have an example of a bad setup. Now, it's a bad setup because if you try switching around from the instruments, it's not smooth. So, a couple things to think about when you are considering where to put your instruments. Consider what it's like picking them up, putting them down, switching, right? Oh, my mouthpiece is on, but switching between this to maybe this, right? Now, the things that make this setup bad, if you are the baritone and the clarinet, which you can't even see, most likely it's off the camera, I'm not sure, but. So let's say you're playing tenor sax, right? You're playing tenor sax and you now want to switch to clarinet. You might say, oh, putting it down, simple, you just grab it. But now you got to go over this bass clarinet to playing position, right? So there's that big move that slows down, and you might not have a lot of time between switches. You could be playing bass clarinet on the stand and have a bar where you have to switch to clarinet, so you have to go. And it's harder to find your positioning. As you saw, I had to find my fingers, right? Other thing that makes this setup very bad is the baritone. Baritone sax deserves priority and location over all other instruments. It is the biggest to move, it's the clunkiest, and it only goes on one side. So here, now I have baritone, right? Let's say I'm playing bass clarinet. Switch to baritone, watch. Heave it up, over, and down. And there's a neck strap change in that whole process. The issue with that is this makes the instrument an absolute bear to deal with. You have that giant motion, which is obvious visually, and if you have an exposed pit orchestra, and in pit orchestras the whole point is to be heard, not seen. The other thing is it's slow, and I've had changes where composers, especially for baritone sax, underestimate how long changes take, and this is why the baritone deserves priority over all else. So now I'm going to move some things around and show you what a setup should look like. Now, this is much better. Your baritone's right here, so you can pick it up and put it down. Your clarinet isn't behind another instrument. It's right here. Now, the funny thing about bass clarinet is you would think it's so big that you'd have to have it on one side or the other, but because you play it in the middle, you can have it on your left just as easily as on your right. So if you're doubling baritone and bari sax, which is, believe me, an extremely common double, you can run your baritone on your right and your bass clarinet on your left. So now I'm going to talk about saxophones. By saxophones, I mean tenor and alto, and the positioning for those. The positioning for these don't really matter because it's more up to preference. Personally, I'm a righty and I play my tenor in the middle, so it's easy for me to pick up with my right hand, bring my left hand over, right hand, and down. Now comparatively, if you were going to have your instrument on your left, you would pick up with your left hand and then your right hand. And as you can see, that position is actually a little bit better because when you pick up the instrument, you can pick it up with your left hand in its playing position. So you just hold let's say a G, and you can bring the horn in and right hand in, you're in playing position. So it's all up to personal preference. I would still always say keep the baritone on the right, but when it comes to setups, you can kind of find your own way. And definitely, I would recommend this to everybody. Practice your setups. Practice switching between baritone to bass clarinet to clarinet, getting used to putting instruments down in multiple different ways coming from different instruments. It's something that before the gig, it's a minor thing, but it can just make your life so much easier when you're not fiddling with changes and missing entrances. You've gotten all of your setups together, you have your equipment, and you're ready for your first Woodwind doubling gigs. Good luck!